In every investigation, there is a story people tell, and then there is the story the evidence tells. Sometimes that evidence is found in a deleted file. Sometimes it is hidden in a log. Sometimes it sits quietly inside a phone that no one can open. In 2015, after a deadly attack in San Bernardino, California, investigators recovered a work-issued iPhone connected to one of the attackers. The phone was locked, and what happened next became one of the most important digital evidence debates in modern history. This was no longer just about one device. It became a fight over encryption, lawful access, privacy, national security, and a question that still follows forensic investigators today. When evidence is locked behind encryption, how far should the government be allowed to go? F for forensics case files. The iPhone the FBI couldn't unlock. 1. The incident. On December 2nd, 2015, a violent attack in San Bernardino, California, made national headlines. In the aftermath, investigators moved quickly. They had to reconstruct what happened before the attack, who may have been involved, whether others had helped, and whether there were additional threats. As with many modern investigations, the physical crime scene was only one part of the story. There was also a digital scene: phones, computers, accounts, messages, backups, location data, search history, contact lists, call records. In today's world, a person's digital footprint can reveal movement, intent, communication, planning, and connections. So when investigators recovered an iPhone used by one of the attackers, the device became a potential source of critical evidence. But there was a problem. The phone was locked. To a casual viewer, a locked phone might seem like a simple obstacle. Enter the passcode, guess the numbers, try again. But to a forensic examiner, a locked and encrypted phone is not simple at all. Modern smartphones are designed to protect the data inside them. That protection can include encryption, passcode limits, time delays, and even settings that erase data after too many failed attempts. Those features are built to protect ordinary users from thieves, hackers, stalkers, and anyone who should not have access to the private data. But in a criminal or national security investigation, those same protections can become a wall between investigators and potential evidence, and in this case, the wall was high. The digital forensic problem. The phone at the center of the case was not just any phone. It was a work-issued iPhone connected to one of the attackers. Investigators believed the device might contain information that could help answer important questions. Had there been communication with others? Were there signs of coordination? Were there additional plans? Was there evidence that could confirm or disprove investigative theories? From a forensic perspective, the value of a phone can be enormous. A phone can hold messages, photos, call logs, app data, notes, web activity, location artifacts, account information, and traces of user behavior. But the first rule of digital forensics is preservation. You do not want to damage the evidence while trying to access it, and that is where locked phones become dangerous. If investigators repeatedly guess a passcode, the device may introduce delays between attempts. If an auto-erase feature is enabled, too many failed attempts could risk wiping the data. So the question was not simply, can the FBI guess the passcode? The question was, can the FBI attempt access without destroying the evidence? The government turned to Apple for help, but what they asked for would become the center of the controversy. What the FBI wanted. The government wanted Apple to provide technical assistance that would make it possible to attempt access to the phone. This was not a request for Apple to simply hand over a password. Apple did not have the passcode. Instead, the government wanted Apple to create a special version of software that could help bypass certain security protections on that specific device. The request focused on three major things. First, bypass or disable the feature that could erase data after too many failed passcode attempts. Second, allow passcodes to be submitted electronically instead of manually tapping numbers on the screen. Third, prevent the phone from adding extra delay between passcode attempts. In plain English, the government wanted a way to safely try passcodes faster without triggering the phone's protections. From the FBI's perspective, this was about following every lead after a deadly attack. From Apple's perspective, this was about being forced to create a tool that could weaken the security of the iPhone. And that is where the case became much bigger than San Bernardino. Apple's response. Apple publicly refused. The company said it had complied with valid legal requests when it had data in its possession. It said it had provided assistance to investigators. It said it had no sympathy for terrorism and wanted justice for the victims. But Apple drew the line at creating new software to break or weaken its own security protections. Apple argued that once such a tool existed, that it could become dangerous. Even if the government said the tool would be used on only one phone, Apple warned that the technique could create a precedent. What happens the next time investigators want access to another device? What happens if another country demands the same capability? What happens if the tool leaks? What happens if criminals, hackers, or hostile governments find a way to use it? This was the core of Apple's argument. A backdoor built for the good guys can eventually become a door for everyone. The FBI saw it differently. To investigators, the phone was evidence in a major terrorism investigation. The government had a warrant. The phone's legal owner had consented. The public wanted answers. Families wanted answers. Investigators wanted to know if the phone contained leads they could not afford to miss. This is what made the debate so difficult. Both sides were talking about public safety. The FBI was focused on the safety threat of not accessing possible evidence. Apple was focused on the safety threat of weakening security for millions of users. And digital forensic professionals were watching one of the most important lawful access debates unfold in real time: the forensic tension. This case exposed a tension that still exists in digital forensics. Investigators are trained to follow evidence, but digital evidence is not like a fingerprint on glass or a document in a drawer. Digital evidence can be encrypted. It can be remote, it can be synced, it can be wiped. It can be protected by systems that are intentionally designed to resist access. That protection is not accidental. It is the point. Encryption protects journalists, businesses, doctors, lawyers, children, activists, victims, and ordinary people who simply want their private lives to stay private. But encryption can also protect suspects, criminals, and attackers. That is the dilemma. The same technology that protects society can also frustrate investigations. And when the government asks a company to weaken that protection, the question becomes bigger than one case. It becomes a question of trust. Can the government be trusted with extraordinary access? Can companies be forced to create tools they believe are dangerous? Can a tool be limited to one device? And if a precedent is created in one high-profile case, how will that precedent be used later? For forensic examiners, this case also raised practical questions. What should be preserved first? What cloud data may be available through legal process? What backups exist? What records can be obtained from providers? What evidence exists outside the device? What risks come with attempting access? And when one path is blocked, what alternative sources can help reconstruct the timeline? Good forensic work is not only about getting into the device, it is about understanding the full evidence ecosystem. The turning point. Before the court could fully resolve the dispute, the government found another way. The FBI accessed the phone with help from a third party, and the Justice Department withdrew its request against Apple. The legal fight ended, but the larger debate did not, because the central question remained unresolved. Should technology companies be required to help the government defeat security protections when investigators have a lawful warrant? Or would that requirement create a dangerous weakness in the devices that millions of people rely on every day? That question is still alive. It appears in debates about encrypted messaging. It appears in debates about cloud backups. It appears in debates about mobile device extractions. It appears every time investigators face a locked device and a deadline. Lessons for forensic professionals. So, what can forensic professionals learn from the San Bernardino iPhone case? Lesson 1. Access is not guaranteed. Possession of a device does not mean possession of the data. A phone can be physically in evidence, properly seized, and legally searchable, yet still technically inaccessible. Lesson 2. Encryption changes the investigation. Strong encryption forces investigators to think beyond the device. Cloud records, provider returns, backups, network logs, communication records, financial data, location records, and witness statements may become even more important. Lesson 3. Legal authority and technical capability are not the same thing. A warrant may give investigators legal permission to search, but it does not automatically provide the technical ability to decrypt or access the data. Lesson 4. Forensic decisions can become public policy debates. Most forensic work happens quietly, but some cases become bigger than the evidence. They shape how courts, companies, lawmakers, and the public think about privacy and security. Lesson 5. The evidence ecosystem matters. In modern investigations, the phone is only one piece. The data may also exist in accounts, backups, apps, networks, servers, vehicles, cameras, and third-party platforms. A locked device is not the end of the investigation. It is a challenge to widen the search. The San Bernardino iPhone case was never only about one phone. It was about what happens when the need for evidence collides with the design of modern security. It forced investigators, technologists, courts, and the public to confront a difficult truth. The stronger we make devices for everyone's safety, the harder it may become to access evidence when something terrible happens. And the easier we make access for investigations, the more we risk weakening security for everyone else. That is the forensic balance. Evidence matters, privacy matters, security matters, and in the digital age, those three things do not always point in the same direction. This has been F for Forensics. Case files, real incidents, hidden evidence, forensic lessons. Like and subscribe for weekly forensic breakdowns, and follow us on social media at F4Forensics.